taxation issue is quite important, but we have to be very careful about one factor, that is who pays. In the 1990s, European countries increased volume of tax by lowering the marginal tax rate and increasing the tax rate. The increasing tax base was mainly due to lower income groups. So when we talk about taxation issues, we have to pay very careful attention to who is going to pay the global tax and what is redistributive implications of that tax. So, as you said, indirect tax is very important, and tax policy for domestic companies and multinational companies have different implications for redistribution and employment generation. So, when we think about taxation, I think taxation is good, but sometimes taxation can undermine living standards of low-income groups depending on the mechanism or quality of that taxation.
The right is the community, obviously, for government states that we cover, the progressive factor was taken into account. Now, and you also mentioned grants. Now, that is my question, in fact, because I wonder if you can maintain that same reasoning today, where we all know that grants have its limits. I think you cannot say today that we need grants in order to have some protection. So it has to stop, so we have to change reasoning somehow, I think. So maybe we can.
Thank you. I just wanted to comment on social dumping, that, for example, in Africa, a lot of physicians who are trained, then they go in Europe. And in Philippines, I've read it's a bit different that nurses were trained in Philippines to go in England, but sometimes it seems that it isn't paid for the scholars. But in other cases, it's just a country to train the nurse and physicians, and then they go away with no balance in the country you pay for the education. Then you have money on health and no return for the population. This is increasing inequity.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Yes, please.
Merci beaucoup. Peut-être intervenir seulement sur la taxation, parce que la vie, quand je parlais qu'il y a des invasions de recettes fiscales dans les pays développés, moi je crois que nous, en tant qu'Africains, on subit cette taxe. Il y a beaucoup de taxes que nous payons, et c'est les pauvres qui paient les taxes. Les riches, les gens qui sont au niveau parlementaire, au niveau des gouvernements, ne payent pas de taxes, et c'est eux qui font des évasions de recettes. Donc, c'est eux qui prennent des montants assez importants qui les amènent dans les pays développés. Et que ce sont des pays développés qui bénéficient de l'argent des pauvres que nous avons dit. Moi, je crois que c'est cas, est-ce que ces pays développés ne peuvent pas intervenir bien nous en tant que société civile? Nous ne pouvons pas faire une mobilisation, un plaidoyer pour que l'argent qu'on garde dans les pays développés, qu'ils payent des taxes beaucoup plus importantes au niveau de ces pays et que ça peut peut-être éviter que les gens, les leaders africains, prennent de l'argent des pauvres et les gardent dans les pays développés en Belgique. Merci.
Thanks. I do agree with you about the need to be careful about food taxes, you know. But then I also seem to agree with you because in Ghana, for example, the government has a policy of what's known as the free zone board. It was meant to bring equity in development. That is, companies that are located outside the city of Accra, Kumasi, will enjoy a 5-year tax-free holiday. It was meant to move development to other parts of the country in order to bring rural advantage. But in this implementation, we have not seen the same. What the companies do is that they just go and hang around Accra and Kumasi city, just some few kilometers to the city, and then they keep on producing and marketing the city. So actually, the top much of that doing something. The 5-year time is up, then they rebrand themselves and change the name. So the developers have said, look, government needs to take it out, and they are enjoying seeing something in terms of money by using this study. So it is very important that we tax this company and put the money into this. But of course, government will also, you know what happens sometimes, take the money and they don't stop the account or the federal and some and that and that.
It was the question, so if you want to make any kind of comment, please come here and then do your and it will go to that.
Et je crois qu'il va être très méfiant par rapport aux taxes qu'on a vu tout à l'heure. Ce qui était valable en Europe et aussi dans les pays d'Afrique, c'est-à-dire que toute la protection sociale qui est financée par les taxes est toujours sujette à exemption pour les revenus du capital et généralement ne va pas bénéficier aux gens les plus pauvres. C'est un petit peu ce que disaient mes camarades du Sénégal. On sait qu'il y a des taxes aussi qui sont tout à fait comme la TVA, à la même. Une taxe par payer non équitablement, mais également par les gens les plus pauvres comme par les gens les plus riches. Et le même niveau de TVA ne représente certainement pas la même chose, naturellement pour des gens qui ont des revenus supérieurs ou des gens qui sont dans la précarité.
Okay? So please come of our government.
We have to study, before we know the impact of tax policies, we need to know who's paying tax. So we need to know where the tax is coming from. So in Brazil, for instance, the IPEA, Instituto de Pesquisas Económicas, has done a study on the regressiveness of value-added tax. That's the Brazilian value-added tax. That's very regressive. The poorest 10% pay the highest, the richest 10% pay the least. Because rich people buy less goods, they invest. And investment doesn't pay VAT. They buy a house, there's no VAT on a rich man's house. So it's important to know who pays VAT. We need to do this study in other countries, but I think it is regressive. Now, trade tax, we don't know so much. Is imported goods consumed by poor or by rich? And what is the cost? Direct tax, we know better. So there we know that it is mostly wealthier people who pay more direct tax. Now, when we know the impact, we can design an optimal tax system which is pro-poor. The tax system has to be pro-poor and pro-equality. Right? So you have to increase equality. Some taxes, like VAT, are regressive. To make them progressive, you have to spend it in public services, which increases equality. Sometimes that's justifiable to raise unequal taxes if you spend it equally. So those are some of the parameters of the fair tax policy. So the Ghana example is very good. Ghana makes a value-added tax of 2.5% of national health insurance levy. It was allocated to education. I know in Brazil, the Constituição Provisória, but it was a tax on VAT. You mentioned taxing VAT. The Brazilian VAT raised about $20 billion in 2007 when it was cancelled by the Congress. But it was allocated last part. And yes, we can tax that. In Europe, there's a proposal, a directive by the European Union to have a financial transaction tax. It is going to raise 35 billion euros in 11 countries. That is as much as aid is given to Africa. If we could give the European tax on banks, shares, bonds, derivatives, all transactions, it would double aid to Africa. That is the potential of taxing banks. And Latin American countries also tax financial transactions in banks. And imposto transacção financeira in Brazil is an important tax on banks. Rich people use more banks than poor people. And you can exempt, as in Brazil, pensions, social security from being taxed. So yes, we should consider transaction taxes on banks and finance as a way to earmark. In English, we call it an earmark, direct allocation, hypothecation, or something called. So you allocate 100% of this bank tax to health. And that is equitable. That is one way to finance health in countries with large financial sectors, like Thailand, for instance, or India, for instance. And that is something.
Thank you very much. The first question about growth, whether it is applicable, in Korean, whether it will be applicable in the 21st century. I think the 21st century capitalism has a limitation in terms of growth. I think it is half true and half false. Half true because in the 21st century, manufacturing sector has a limitation in terms of absorbing labor. So in China, they reach the limit for labor. And the share of manufacturing sector is not increasing, and it is starting decreasing. So we have a limitation in terms of growth in manufacturing sector capacity to absorb workers. But if we consider there is a certain share of wages for manufacturing sector, there is a limitation in growth in manufacturing sector. And that growth is measured in terms of market cost. We have identified GDP for many years because it is measuring our quality of life. GDP cannot represent the development, growth in many ways. Because GDP does not measure what we are doing at home. Household, care level, all those are not calculated in terms of GDP, meaning it is not calculated as growth. So growth in the 21st century has a potential by changing our way of measuring economy. Until now, we were working within the framework of neo-classical or classical economy. So everything was measured in terms of money, and we always measure those things which can be praised as a mark. But there are others. I think there is a changing world of our mindset and that is the transformation. Or that is the first step towards transformation. So I agree, there is a limitation in terms of growth, in terms of national economy, but there is a potential for another growth in alternative economics. And we have to find out that if we can generate efficient household labor or campus or division of labor at home, and we can improve environment, and then we can measure that improvement as a growth. So there is a potential in the 21st century in terms of growth, and there is a limitation. So, of course, we cannot apply Korean model of the 1970s and 80s to developing countries now, because growth model itself is different. But we can apply those principles of Korean growth model to developing countries in the 21st century, because the role of state is quite important. The control of private sector is quite important, and investment in education and health is crucial for development and growth. So again, it is outright and helpful to say that there is a limitation in growth in the 21st century. That's one of the things. Thank you.
So, on the education that our medical practitioners from the Philippines, but other countries are benefiting from this group of educating these Filipinos and Filipinos. And ironically, yes, that's true, and that is a problem for us too. That's because they don't have this income, living wage in the Philippines. That's why they are forced to go outside the country. As well as other professionals we have and informal workers we have. They are forced to go out. And that's why we also want to include in our social protection program, which Ilson would rather prefer to be termed as social policy because it's broader, to also include the guarantee to job and also guarantee to a living wage. And ironically, with regard to the medical practitioners, we are now national medical practitioners, and in order for us to realize this universalization of healthcare, which is part of the program now in the present administration, the non-board partners will also be asked to serve as doctors in basic healthcare service. So it's risky for us Filipinos because non-board partners are willing to provide this medical service. So what we are wanting, what we are demanding from our government now is to ensure that social protection is an integral part of the national development strategy, and that both of these should be guided by the principles of social justice, equity and distribution, democratization, especially human rights, and the principle of solidarity. And we all need to really work together to claim this human rights, to claim this conception.
Okay, thank you very much for the meeting. And,